Thank you in advance for taking the time to view our content. If you desire and find this content helpful, please like, subscribe, and share.
Okay, good evening, everybody. This is week 2 of our lead generation workshop. And in this lead generation workshop, what we are doing is we are working through the technical aspects of lead generation. We're going to assume that you have committed to work with other online marketers. So even if that's not necessarily your market, you can actually take what we're going to be doing in this workshop. You can apply it to any niche. But if you are working with other online marketers, that's going to be a good thing. And if you're not really deep into your market or niche, one of the things that you want to really consider is actually almost going through the process of selling to other online marketers. And the reason is that this market is very forgiving of mistakes. And once you actually work through the process and you understand it, you can actually then do this in any market, in any niche. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, everybody? So even if the information marketing niche is not your market, I suggest you actually launch products and generate leads in this market regardless, and learn how to sell here. If you've made no sales of information products, if you have not yet made, I'd say, between 10 and 50 sales in your information marketing business, I would say that you want to learn by doing it here, right? And so we're going to go through that process. We will put together an offer for the Warrior Plus Network, a lead generation offer, and we will set up your opt-in, your copy, and your email system. Right? Any questions so far? So let's move on. First, let's talk about the order of operations in which you need to do things. First, we talked last week about the fact that you want to build marketer relationships, because by the time we get to week 4, we're going to be doing something called the buyer infiltration method, where you're going to go to somebody and you're basically going to ask them if you can put your opt-in page and an image on their download page. So right now, based on what we did last week, you can and should be building relationships with other marketers. Incidentally, depending on when you're listening to this, always look for the events that are going to be where you're going to find other information marketers, and you can actually build some of those relationships in person. But even if you can't, and you can't attend them, you can start building relationships in the same way we talked about last week. Find out about their launches and their funnels. If you have not visited the site MunchEye, I'm going to actually show that to you now, and we did this last week, but I do want you to see this again. We're going to open up Google Chrome here, and we're just going to go to MunchEye. MunchEye.com. And MunchEye.com doesn't have all the information marketer launches, but it has quite a few. And if you want to find out what the person who's in your niche that you really need to connect with, you want to find out when they're launching. You want to find out when they have something available. And you can actually do that in advance by going to this site and checking the launch board, and then taking a look to see what you can offer. For example, we can go all the way out. In this case, we can go out the months. I'm counting almost 6 months out. So if you feel like, well, I need to have time in order to create something, well, come all the way down. You could go all the way down to, looks like February of next year, right? So even if you felt like, well, I need time to get my my offer together, then take your time. I mean, certainly you don't want to wait 9 months. However, you can take as long as you need to, and you can actually see what somebody's going to launch here and how you can prepare and start your approach to them based on what you create. How many, does that make sense to you? Going to MunchEye and seeing when the person that you need to connect with, when their launch is. So if you get that, please put the number 1 in the question box. Right? If you get where I'm coming from. Okay, fantastic. So let's go back here. Okay, we talked last week about noting the connection points in Warrior Plus. We talked about the 10 most used or most requested keywords for people who want notifications. And so you want to understand how that fits your product and your market. We want to connect what we can offer to what's being asked for. Now, if you haven't seen last week's session, make sure you do that. That's an important point because people are actually getting notifications sent to them every single day, and you want your notification to be amongst those that are being sent out to the people who've actually requested something in that subject matter. The part that we want to do, even before we talk about tonight, we want to determine the purpose of our lead generation and determine a goal. So in other words, are you trying to get people into your marketing funnel so that you can sell stuff to them and make money? I mean, obviously we're doing that, but is that your direct goal? Do you have a number of leads that you need or that you want? And sometimes that's going to be dictated by how many leads you know it's going to take before you can actually get something sold. But you should have a goal as to how many people you want to get to opt in. You want to adjust these numbers as time goes forward. We talked about that last week. We're gonna talk about creating a sales page with graphical images, and I'm calling this a sales page because you're trying to sell the prospect on opting in. We are creating a sales page, and don't look at it as an opt-in page because that puts your mind in the wrong frame of mind. We're selling, we are marketing, we are convincing, we are trying to be persuasive on the opt-in page. So don't just call it an opt-in page because it almost makes you think that you can kind of put anything together and as long as you have a free gift, everything's going to be okay. That's not true, right? The best opt-in pages do a good job of selling you why you need to go ahead and give up your name and email address. Okay, so we're going to create a sales page. We're going to create a thank you page. We are going to create a follow-up offer. In many cases, the follow-up offer can be some of the PLR that you're buying. So in other words, you have PLR that you've purchased on a particular subject. Let's say it's social media, let's say it's Facebook, let's say it's YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and then you have something, you have an offer that's video related. Well, if you don't have a follow-up offer, you're not always going to have one. Sometimes if you want to make sure you've got an upsell, this is what you use your PLR to do. And we're going to be talking about that, making sure we have a follow-up offer, and then placing that inside of our funnel. Okay, we're going to make sure we get 3 emails written. In other words, we want to make sure that we have something that's going to be ready to go that at minimum tells our customer who we are and what they can expect. We're going to set up automation, and then we're going to set up an exit pop. And one of the reasons we talked a little bit about that at the beginning of the session. And then what you're doing on JVZoo, for JVZoo marketers, you want to seek a perfect match with someone you already have a relationship with. And the reason that you want to do that is because JVZoo you really do have to have a prior relationship, right? So in other words, with Warrior Plus, you and I can get traffic if we don't know anybody. If we can get our product into the right category, and we can actually launch on Warrior Plus, we are going to get traffic to that offer. It doesn't mean anybody's going to buy. It doesn't mean everybody's going to buy, but we can get people to see our offer, and we can get more than one person. We can get more than 5 people. We can get people if we pick the right topic, and people have that notification sent to them, and they open up an email, and they're going to click on our offer, and then it'll be up to us to kind of turn them into customers. Is everybody clear on that? Does that make sense? So if you get that, please put the number 2 in the question box. If you get that. Right, and I'm going to move on while we do that. If you have any questions, make sure you ask this. And all this is stuff we went over last week. We're going to request to add a bonus onto their download page. So let's talk about lead generation. The best and most efficient way, one of the most efficient ways to generate leads is going to be create a product for the Warrior Plus network. And while you test different offers to find out what works, you can be building a list. So obviously, if you're gonna put something up for sale, you can already have an offer that you can place there that's going to be for opting in. And on the Warrior Plus network, the same thing about Warrior Plus going to be true for JVZoo, going to be true for Zaxa. You want to try to, if you haven't launched before, you want to work with new marketers. You ought to expect to work with new marketers. Now, if you have something that's going to be I'd say appealing to, I guess, more seasoned and I guess experienced marketers, fantastic. You can go after them. It's difficult, though, to go after someone when you don't have a network already. However, you don't really need a network to try to reach new marketers. And you can actually reach them easily on Warrior Plus. So again, I'm going to assume that in this case, if you haven't really done much in the way of putting yourself together with somebody, that you are going to be working with new marketers on Warrior Plus. And again, now you may feel like you don't know enough, but just kind of look at yourself as being a first grader, looking at them as being in kindergarten, right? So you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be the expert yet, right? You can become the expert. You can be on the way to being an expert, and you can actually reach and sell to people, right? New marketers who may be in a grade below you. They might be in second grade. You might be in third or fourth grade. Okay, so again, might not necessarily work in JVZoo. We're going to be working around that in week 4. So again, we're going to work around that problem using the buyer infiltration method by getting our page on somebody else's download page. We're going to be talking all about that during week 4. That's going to be the last thing we do in this series. And of course, we talked about this last week, and this is something that you should be doing right now. And that is, you should be building relationships with existing product creators and talking and finding out about their launches. We just went over that a minute ago, and we went over it last week. So first, what we want to do tonight, let's talk first about building your opt-in page and getting graphics. Right? That's really the first step. Basically, as we said before, what you're doing here is you are creating a sales page. And you're selling your customer on opting in. So what does that mean? Well, before I even get to the copy, and I want to stress this, more and more people are reading sales pages from their mobile device. So your opt-in page, I don't care if you haven't done it prior to that, or if you don't necessarily want to get a page builder, you don't like any of the ones that are out there, your page has to be mobile responsive. So you have to assume that somebody is going to first see your page on a mobile device. And so that might mean getting optimized press. It might mean getting, I don't know, what is it called, Conversely, whatever the case is, doesn't really matter which one you have, but you need one that's going to make your opt-in page mobile responsive. Does that make sense? Everybody clear on that? Well, assume that you're going to have people looking at your ad for the first time on their mobile device. So if you get that, please put the number 3 in the question box. If you get that, okay, make sure. How many of you here would you say that your opt-in page is going to be mobile responsive? If you do, put a Y in the question box. I just want to see here. Right? Okay, fantastic. So if it's not, that's something that you are going to have to work on sooner rather than later. All right, now, when we talk about an opt-in page, speed matters, right? You need to be able to kind of communicate quickly to the people that are going to be seeing it. In fact, if you were to visit most opt-in pages, the video is going to be disabled, right, in most cases. So putting an opt-in video on, I'm going to say you only want to do that unless it's absolutely necessary. So you want to plan on making your pitch to someone, first of all, by getting the right people to the page. Second of all, by making sure your copy is at least decent enough to convince them to opt in. Right? So again, don't count on video in this particular case, because you need to get people to make a split decision that, yes, I want whatever it is you're offering so badly, I will put in my name and email address right now, and I'm going to put in my real one so I'll get it. Right? Now, we're going to go through some of those things tonight to make sure that you don't get people who are going to opt in and then get your stuff and then walk away. Right? We want to make sure they don't get it to the end of the process so that they don't walk away before they actually have to opt in. Okay, here's what your page has got to have. at minimum, right? So whether you call it an opt-in page, landing page, whatever you call it, right? Where people are going to opt in, you got to have these things. Number one, you got to have a headline. The headline really needs to say something that's going to be the chief benefit. And it's like every other headline, it really should, to the best of your ability, it should grab people by the throat. It should make a big claim. It should make a bold claim. It should make some kind of claim that's going to benefit me, right? It should be a headline first. Again, it doesn't have to be great. And you have already seen headlines. You are a marketer, you're an info marketer. You know what a headline is. What I'm saying to you is that you have to take that same concept from the sales page and bring it to your opt-in page. Does that make sense? If you get that, put the number 4 in the question box. If you get that. Okay, don't assume that your product alone is going to be enough to convince somebody to opt in. You need a good, solid headline. You need to have a physical representation of what they are going to get. I'm basically talking about an e-cover, right? I'm talking about an e-cover. Let me kind of show you what everybody here has seen an e-cover, right? Everybody here has seen one. You need to have one on your opt-in page, folks. And this is, again, one of those things that's not an option. So yes, you need to have your opt-in page needs to be mobile responsive. Yes, you need to have a headline. Yes, it needs to be also with an e-cover. And however you make it. So if you can't make one at this point, I think you can have one made for $5 on Fiverr. You can do it on Photoshop, or you can do it on Usign or any of the other graphic creators. You can, but you need to have a physical representation. Are they getting a video? So if they're getting a video from you, you need to create a physical representation of the video. Are they getting an ebook from you? You need to create a physical representation of what they're going to get. Let me show you this, what I mean here. And I will, I'm just going to go to Warrior Plus here. And then I'm just going to pick an offer. I'm going to pick an offer here. Actually, I'm going to see if I can find. What you're going to notice here is that there's only one, but it is something, right? One page publishing profits. I don't know, maybe one of you have purchased this, but you do have to have this little physical representation works psychologically on the person. It lets them know that even though this is a digital product, you are going to have something tangible. It's going to make a tangible difference. And trying to do and get people to opt in without this makes it more difficult mentally for me to feel like I'm going to get something, and it's not going to be as urgent for me to opt in. So if you get that, put the number 5 in the question box. How many of you here, if I were to ask you, you could create a physical representation of your opt-in tonight? Right? If that's you, put the number 6 in the question box. If you can, right, if that's you, I can create one tonight if I needed to. Okay, good. So a lot of you. That's important. That needs to go on your opt-in page. So yes, you need to have the headline. Yes, it needs to be mobile responsive. And yes, you should have a physical representation. And when I say a physical representation, notice here how the image is 3D. Right? A 3D image does give a person an impression that they're going to get something. Again, it all works in the background of somebody's brain. They're not even thinking consciously. You and I are not even thinking consciously about it. But we are thinking about it, and this is what sticks in our mind when we're trying to decide whether or not we're going to actually go ahead and get something. How many of you all have had the experience where you're going to buy an information product and you waited, right? You waited overnight, and then but you thought about it all that night, right? You thought about it. Well, one of the things that sticks in your mind is this 3D image. And so you want to make sure you have that on your opt-in page. Does that make sense? So if you get that, put the number 7 in the question box, if you get that part of it. So make sure you have one of those on your opt-in page. And whatever you have to do to buy the tool to create this or to buy it from Fiverr, and folks, quite honestly, you can go to Fiverr and get this done every time. Or you can have a designer. Get a simple tool. There's something called e-cover Authority by Chad El Jassir. There is, if you want to do Photoshop, there is, I think, what's called Cover Action Pro. If you're a Photoshop user, there is Usign. One of these, you need one of them. And because you don't want to have to wait in order to create an image to put on an opt-in page, right? You need to be able to, when you have something that's really cool, you want to stick it on the opt-in page, you should be able to create something on demand that's fast, that you understand, right? So if you understand Photoshop, get the thing that you can use to create an opt-in page quick, or to create an opt-in image quickly. All right, so let's move on. Okay, if you're going to have an image on there, if you're going to have people, now I'm going to say you don't have to have people in your opt-in, right? That's not necessary, and it's almost old school these days. If you're going to have people on there, put them in the goal position. So that's typically why, you know, even if you see somebody, if you see people on an info marketing sales page, they're smiling. They're relaxing. That's really the idea behind, and again, I know that putting people on the beach, in lounge chairs, I know it's cheesy, but the idea is that this is where you want to be, right? And you don't have to be that, I'd say, outlandish about it. Like, having a man or a woman sitting on the beach under the umbrella with a, with a Mai Tai. You don't have to do that, but what you really can have, though, is you could have the person with that satisfied sense that they've accomplished something, right? You can buy images that are like that. But if you're going to have people on there, you don't have to have people on your opt-in page, but if you are going to have them in the goal position, have them in the happy place, have them representing the fact that, they're looking like they already bought your product. They already have it. So in this case, we're talking about your report. Well, if your report is about getting more business, if your report is about, let's say, generating more leads or closing more deals, let's say it's closing more deals, try to find an image of somebody who's in the handshake of a closed deal. Does that make sense? So if you get that, please put the number 8 in the question box. Put it, if you're going to have people, and you want to have them on your opt-in page, put them in the goal position. If they're not going to be in the goal position, what you're doing is you are setting people's minds back, I'd say psychologically, right? They're thinking, what is it that I want from this report? And all this is happening in the background. Nobody's consciously thinking this. All of this is kind of happening in a split second. They see the image, and you automatically assume, right, someplace in your brain you think, hey, if I get this, maybe I'll start closing deals. So I'm going to go ahead and put my name and email address in there, right? So again, put people in the goal position. You want to have a two-step opt-in form if possible. Let me show you that here. I think I can go inside of one of my Optimized Press pages here. Again, you don't have to use Optimized Press. You can use any page builder that you want. Okay, let me ask a question. Of all of the people who are here, tell me what page builder you are using. Right, tell me what page builder you're using. Maybe you're not using Optimized Press, which is okay, but what page builder do you use? Again, if you're not using one yet, okay, somebody's using InstaBuilder, okay, good. Somebody's using Igloo, okay, good. Right? All those are great. All those are good. Okay, so I'm just going to open up this template. We'll call this test for opt-in two-step. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to save this page. Right, okay, here's an example. Here's an example of the goal position, right? Right, here's an example. Now, that wasn't what I brought you here for, but you understand, do you understand how this is kind of the goal position? Right, do you get that? So if you get that, put the letter Y in the question box. Right, see how she's just kind of, she's chilling. She's, I don't know what that is in her hand. She's probably got a book in her hand. She's in the mountains or someplace, right? So that's the idea. So, okay, what you want to have, if possible, and all these page builders do this, they have a two-step process. right? So you can, and these are proven now to actually get more opt-ins, right? From all the testing that's being done, it's still the case that these work better to get people actually to opt in. They're going to click this, and then that's what comes up, right? 2 steps, right? Does that make sense? Do you get that part? So however you're going to do it inside of your page builder, whatever one you use, you want to use the feature that's going to give those 2 steps to the people who are going to come to your page. Okay, you can find graphics for the information marketing niche in your social network, right? You can always reach out to people on Facebook or your Twitter, right, depending on who's out there. And you may or may not want people in your business, may or may not want anyone to know that you're creating anything, and that's fine. So you don't have to do that on Facebook, and you don't have to ask in groups. There is still probably the best place to find those people is going to be the Warrior Forum. I'm going to show you that here in just a second. And you're going to go to the Warriors for Hire section. I'm going to go there right now. How many of you are familiar with the Warrior Forum? So if you are familiar with the Warrior Forum, I want you to put the 1 in the question box, even if you don't go there a lot. How many of you all are familiar with it? And there isn't a lot of posting that goes on there anymore. I'm not suggesting that you hang out there. What I am suggesting is that when you need someone and you're looking for a service provider, if you are going to be working with the information marketing niche, the people that are here on this forum, they know how to create graphics that actually work. The people that are in this forum know how to create graphics that are going to help you convert. And so even if you don't like the forum, even if you don't like hanging out there, and I know a lot of people say don't hang out on the Warrior Forum. I don't have a dog in this hunt. You can hang out there, you cannot hang out there. What I am saying to you though is if you're looking for a service provider, you can typically find one here that knows how to create graphics that a marketer responds to. So let's go to Warriors for Hire. And what I mean by that is typically a marketer's graphics need to be slightly over the top, but not quite over the top. And there's that way of being able to create them that most of the people who work on this forum, they know how to do that, right? How many of you all know the kind of graphics I'm talking about? A little bit over the top, but not quite, right? If you understand what I mean by that, I want you to put a 2 in the question box. So again, not way out there, but they do need to not look like, I guess, regular life. They don't need to be practical. They need to draw your attention and then pull you in. Okay, so we're in the Warriors for Hire section. Okay, so we're going to search inside of Warriors for Hire, and we're just going to type in graphics. Very simple. Okay, so here we find people, designers, programmers. Okay, no upfront, $5 banner, $9 header, $10 e-cover, $11 logo responsive sales page, landing page, WSO. Just looking at this, how many of you all find that reasonable? Even before we look at it, how many of you all find that to be more reasonable than maybe you thought it was? So if you see that now as reasonable, I want you to put a 3 in the question box. Right? So again, if we didn't see anything else, we can have a banner created for $5 by this person, a header created for $9, an e-cover for $10, right? A logo for $11, right? So if we add all that together, right, what is that? $14, $24, $30, $34. So let's take a look at the actual designer. Right, Deb C. I don't even know her personally, right? So she can create a graphic. Right, so typically what you're going to do is you want to just kind of scroll through the thread. I like to go all the way to the end, I just like to see what people's experience is with this person. Okay, so you want to make sure, you want to make sure that she's got some satisfied customers here. And if you do, then you've probably found a decent person that you could probably work with. Right now, there are plenty of people where you can actually go and you can continue to just kind of find the right person. All right. So find your graphics person. If you can't find them in your social network and you don't know anyone, that's fine. You can actually find someone in the Warriors for Hire section. It's like anything else, right? Just like you would do on Amazon or eBay, you try to find somebody who has the best reviews. Okay. Any questions so far? Any questions? All right, now, at minimum, because we're going to be doing the buyer infiltration method, you need to have a square ad that's 250 by 250 because that's what the person is going to put on their download page. So we need to at minimum have that, right? So even if we get an e-cover, we got to have that square image, right? And we want it to have it look decent. And I'll show you one here that I have. It doesn't have to be a work of art, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a work of art. I'll show you one. And I'm going to pull this open in just a second. Okay, so here's a JV announcement. Same thing, right? And what happens is I will get the PSD file. I mean, you'll see that here also. And I can edit the PSD file. So I can edit this in Photoshop to make it what I want. So when I actually pay for it, I can go inside then of my graphics program. Whatever your graphics program is, you want to try to get the PSD file from the designer so that you can then edit that file in whatever your software is. Right? Does that make sense, everybody? Does everybody understand what a PSD file is? If you understand what a PSD file is, please put the number 4 in the question box. If you don't, right, put the number 5 there. Right, that's right, Helen, Photoshop. Okay, so everybody's good with that. All right, so we're going to open up Photoshop just for a second so I can show you this. Okay, so you'll see here, I can go in, I can edit this, and I can continue to use it over and over. So whatever you get, you want to make sure that you can edit it because every time you put it on a different opt-in page, you want to be able to change it. Right, and that's what we're going to be able to do. Okay, I'm going to close out of Photoshop. Okay, now in terms of your opt-in page, right, in terms of your opt-in page, right now, kind of finished talking about the graphics. Most of your page builders are going to have a template that can be modified, right? You just saw one of those templates just a second ago, and I'll show you another one here. And once again, the template itself or the page builder itself is not important. You use what you have. I'm not suggesting that you go out and buy a new one. Now, if you don't have a page creator, you probably do want to have one of those at minimum. Right? Because again, your page does need to be mobile responsive, and you do want to make sure that you can have something that's going to look, I think, professional. Okay, so now we can get a template like this. We're going to do it. Obviously, we're going to change this image out. We're going to connect our autoresponder to this part. We're going to write this in. And again, a really simple template. If we want to put our logo up there, we're going to put it up there. Again, this is my headline, right? That's my subheadline. I could put a video here. I've got my graphical representation. I've got my email. The only thing I don't have is a two-step process here, and I could actually change that if I wanted to. Right? I've got some copy here telling people what they're going to get, right? Why they should go ahead and opt in. And that's really it. Right? It should not be a lot of stuff on here, but you do want to do those minimum number of things. Right? Any questions? Okay, so let's go ahead and just kind of take that down. So then what you're going to do, you want to make sure you connect your autoresponder. And there are a couple of important things that I do want to talk to you about here. How many of you all know what SPF records are? Okay, so if you know what your SPF record is, I want you to put the number 5 in the question box. If you don't, put the number 6 in the question box. Okay, so an SPF record is basically going to make it so that when your autoresponder sends an email, you want them to send it as your email address. Because if the autoresponder sends it, let's say as AWeber or as GetResponse, what's going to happen is that the spam filters will assume that this is some kind of phishing attack, right? And so they just automatically put those emails in the promotions tab. They will automatically put those emails in the spam folder. So what you and I have to do is we have to go through a process, and again, now this part's a little difficult because this is going to be peculiar to whoever is hosting your domain, right? So whoever's hosting your domain, you need to find out from them how to get your SPF records in sync. Let me show you, and it's also actually going to be individual to an autoresponder. I'm going to show you the one for AWeber. And I'm actually I will put this into the notes. I know that not everyone uses AWeber, but you're going to have to find and do the same search for your autoresponder. So I'm putting this in the message to everyone right now so that you'll see it. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to figure out how to do it for your autoresponder. And what you'll notice here about this is that AWeber assumes you've got GoDaddy. Not everybody's going to have GoDaddy hosting, right? And what AWeber also has here is that they assume that your domain or that your site is hosted in the same place where your domain is. That's not going to be most people. And so you're going to have to do this with your hosting company, not with your domain company. Again, if your domain is not hosted in the same place where your hosting is, you need to go through this process with your hosting company and find out how to get your SPF records updated. Does that make sense? Right, so again, I'm not going to take you through the technical process of doing this. I want you to check with your host to find out what their process is. That's what I want you to do. In some cases, they will do it for you. In other cases, they will show you a tutorial on how to do it. So again, don't do the process. Check with your host as to what the process is. If you get that, put the number 7 in the question box. Okay, even if you don't understand fully what an SPF record is. This will allow you to send an email as your email address and not as the autoresponder company. Because when it comes as the autoresponder company, it looks like spam. Right? So you go through all this trouble to put your opt-in page together, and then that opt-in goes to spam. In fact, what can also happen is that your confirmation email goes to spam, and people don't ever see it. Right? That can happen. All right, so also, and I probably shouldn't have pulled my browser down, check your message with this site, mail-tester.com. Check to see if your SPF records are working. Check to see if everything is in order. What you'll do is you will go to your autoresponder and send a test message to this address, and then check your score, right? Okay, so here we are inside of AWeber, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish writing my message, right? I'm going to finish writing my message here. I'm going to test it. I'm going to test it by going here. Now in AWeber, all autoresponders are going to be different. Now this is the way it works in AWeber. I'm going to put that address in here before I start relying on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the send test button. And then I'm going to go back to mail tester. I'm going to wait a few seconds, right? I'm going to count to maybe 5 or 10. And then I'm going to click check your score. Right now, if nothing is wrong, you're going to get a 10 out of 10. That generally means, now you're not in the clear yet, but it generally means you don't have any major problems. And one of the things that this is going to tell you is, it's going to tell you if your SPF records are in order, right? And it'll tell you that inside of here, right? So you can actually see if you're going to have a problem with your SPF records by using mail-tester.com. So test your messages before you consider them ready to go, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so Helen says, explain some things. My domain was from GoDaddy and my hosting is right. No, that's right. So if you have in 2 different places, you have to do it with your host. Your confirmation, your subject line should not be spammy, right? It should not be spammy. And I'm actually going to go back to Aweber to show you this now. And I'm just going to save this form. I'm going to go to step 2. And we're going to go to step 3. What I want to do here is I want to go to the list, to the confirmation. Okay, so the confirmation here, what you're going to notice here, now Aweber does this a little differently than some of the other companies. Every company does this, and you're going to have to find out. One of the things that you don't want to do, and this is something that if you don't pay attention to it, you'll just leave it as a default, and you can't assume that the default is right. Right? Aweber has this in the default, and this afternoon I spent about half an hour on the phone, and even though this is the default message, they don't suggest you use the default message, right? So they suggest you change it, and I suggest you change it also. If you send this message as is, this confirmation message is, even with Aweber, it's very likely to go to spam, right? If you just leave it as is. So what you need to do in some cases is you need to do a custom subject line. Now, I'm going to show you some notes. I'm going to actually go and get some notes that I had with Aweber from a conversation I had with them today. Okay? And so when you request that they approve a subject line, the number one reason why they don't approve a subject line is that it has no call to action. Right? So you notice that one says confirm your subscription. Now you can change that, but you still need to make sure that you're giving a call to action. It has to be, and number 2 says the call to action has to be about confirming their email address. Okay? Don't say something like please subscribe because they've already subscribed. She said that is a reason why they would reject your subject line. And it shouldn't be vague. So in other words, if they're confirming for, let's say, your new Facebook ads program, it should say that, right? And yes, that does make for a long subject line, but you want to be, first of all, you're going to have to get accepted by Aweber if you're working with Aweber, but second of all, you don't want it to be spammy, and that's really what they're trying to avoid there. Right? Does that make sense? Is everybody clear on that? So even if you don't use Aweber, you need to make sure that your subject line is not spammy. Okay, so Helen's question is, the call to action should be specific. It should be about confirming. So it should be confirm your subscription to the, let's say, the Facebook ads video course. Something like that, something specific. Why are they opting in? You know, what did they opt in to get? And so be as specific as you can. And actually what they think, and I don't know, I haven't tested this, but this is what Aweber says, that you stand a better chance of getting this confirmation email through the spam filters if you can be specific. Again, I don't know if that's necessarily true. That's not something I've tested. That is what they said on the call. Right? Any questions? Okay, we're going to finish up this. We're going to finish up this slide, and then we're gonna take off here. I know we're getting long in terms of time. The first email is where you're going to tell them everybody about your business. So don't put all that stuff in the confirmation email. Once again, it won't necessarily get you into spam, but it's not something that's going to be good practice. Google tends to be email specific. So in other words, when you start sending email to spam using an email address, at some point Google will consider that email address to be spammy, and it will send all your stuff to spam. So again, you should be testing your emails every single time they go out, and if an email starts going to spam, stop using it. Right? And I know that, and again, that is from experience. If when you start testing and using an email address inside of your autoresponder, emails going to spam, because of that email address, change it. Right? You can change it within it, and because it's email specific, you can use the same domain. Right? You can use the same domain. I'll show you that here in a minute. Okay? You can help yourself by confirming with a second domain and email address. So in other words, if you have more than one domain name, what you can do is you can actually use that second domain to put inside your autoresponder. Let me show you what I mean when I say that. I don't want to be vague about this because this is pretty important. Okay, I can put in an email address here. I would suggest you use a different email, a different domain for this address than the one that you're going to be sending your emails with. I would suggest you confirm with a different email address. Again, I don't confirm with this email address, so that's why this is a Gain Mindshare email address. But if you're going to be giving out free reports, get your SPF records, I'd say, in sync, and then if you can, send with a different email address. Now again, Aweber itself recommends this, and I don't know if you can see this, but if you're going to use, I'd say, an email address, you want to use one that's associated with your hosting, not Gmail or Hotmail, right? So don't use, let's say, famousperson.gmail.com, right? Try to use charles@famousperson.com, right? So don't use Gmail or Hotmail, all those generic email addresses. If you can, get a business email address. Now, let me show you how you do this here inside of cPanel, and I think that's going to be it here for tonight. Okay, we're talking about setting up an email address with your host and not with your domain company. I'm going to get into that right here. I'm just going to find the domain. Okay, so we are inside of Fantastico. Right, how many of you all are familiar with cPanel in your hosting? So if you're familiar with cPanel, I want you to put an 8 in the question box. You are familiar with cPanel. If you were not familiar with cPanel, I want you to put a 9 in the question box. Okay, most of you are. Okay, good. What we are going to do here is we're just going to go to our email accounts, and we're going to create a new email. And we're going to call it, well, we can call it whatever. Now, one thing you do want to know is that when you start trying to send emails, particularly with the confirmation email, if you're using an email address that is something like support or admin can be considered to be spammy, right? Again, I know you don't mean it to be spam, but again, I'm just telling you what could land you in purgatory, email purgatory. You want to, if you can, use some kind of personal or identifying name. It doesn't have to be your name. It can be James@yourdomain.com instead of admin@yourdomain.com or support@yourdomain.com. Does that make sense? Does everybody get that? So if you get that, please put the number 9 in the question box. So I'm going to go ahead and create this email address. I'm going to call it James. I'm going to give it a password, and I'm going to create it doesn't match. All right, I'm going to create an account. Okay, my email address is created. Right, very easy. That means now you have use of an email address. And this is the kind of email address you really do want to use if you're going to be doing this inside of sending inside of an autoresponder, particularly one like Aweber or GetResponse. Right? Any questions? We're going to stop at this point and we're going to pick it up next week. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, does anyone find does this helpful? Is this helpful to you? Right. So if you found that helpful, put a Y in the question box. All right. Good. Glad to hear that. And what we'll do is we will pick it up next week, and we will continue the process. So everybody, thank you very much for coming tonight. Appreciate you all. Have a great night. A pleasant tomorrow. Take care.